Further questions? I recognize the Leader of the Third Party.
The Premier. And, Ontarians need to have, especially right now, confidence in their government. And the New York Times has done what this government hasn't done, that they haven't done their job: dig into Therm's credentials. What they found is stunning. A company with one small spa, only $1 million in equity, and an interconnected web of shell companies. Yet somehow they convinced the Premier that they had a global track record. It didn't just stretch the truth, it led the Premier down the garden path, and Infrastructure Ontario signed right off on it. So why did the Premier greenlight a 95-year deal with a company that inflated its portfolio and couldn't pass a basic financial sniff test?
I recognize the Minister of Infrastructure.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Therme passed the financial test that is done by the world-renowned arms-length agency in Infrastructure Ontario. Now, Madam Speaker, I think that the professionals and the experts at Infrastructure Ontario have far more experience doing a financial test than the member opposite. Mr. Speaker, 4,700 new jobs will be created during the redevelopment of Ontario Place, and another 2,000 permanent jobs will be created once Ontario Place is redeveloped. So not only are we creating jobs, but we're also creating a wonderful place for families to visit. Nothing is more important than protecting our economy, protecting jobs, and standing behind the Premier as we fight for Ontario and fight for our country.
Further questions, or rather that's a supplementary. I recognize the Leader of the Third Party.
Speaker, and so we now know that bidders had to sign non-disclosure agreements, and that those non-disclosure agreements allowed the government to choose any company it wanted, qualified or not, bid or not, and then call that a procurement process. The winner was a firm with no real experience, no transparency, and no money. Therm didn't win a contract, they won a prize. And the deck was stacked behind closed doors. Will the Premier finally admit this was not a competitive process and explain why Infrastructure in Ontario ran a done deal rather than a fair one?